Hey, everybody, welcome to the Ronline Report. Today's guest, if you watched the stream of the Mr. Olympia this past weekend, you saw this man was definitely one of the breakout stars of the entire weekend. In fact, I'd say there were only two people that were really being talked about the most over the Olympia weekend. One was Hadi Chupan, and the other one was this man, Patrick Moore from Texas. How are you, Patrick?
I'm pretty good, man. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. I mean, top 10 in the Olympia, first try. Wow. What else
It,
can I say?
it,
Uh,
it was an amazing experience. I don't think it could have gone any better. I mean, I wouldn't have imagined it going any better. I absolutely went in with no expectations, but to beat what I just did in California a few months back.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get into your contest history, but my history doesn't with you doesn't go back that far. I first saw you at the 2017 USA. Sean Ray and I were covering the show for Muscular Development. You won the super heavyweight, and you got your pro card there. And my impressions of you were, wow, what a frame on this guy. Clavicles are this wide, waist is like this, arms were just ridiculous, delts like this, and I said he's top heavy.
Yeah,
His legs need a lot of work. And like I said in the interview that we did at the meet and greet, a lot of guys when they have an imbalance like that, especially when the legs are behind, I never see them really bring the legs up to par. And you did it. Not only you did it in just like about a year and a half, 2 years, not even.
yes,
Because
sir.
wow, we'll get into that because there's a lot of people out that need to know what you did so they can follow suit. But
Yeah.
I want to find out more about you because I know nothing about you except your contest history, which we'll get into later. But where are you originally from? What kind of things were you into growing up?
So I grew up in Texas, in Houston.
Okay.
My dad was military. So that the early part of my years, we're traveling as a kid, and then settled down here finally in Houston. Went to school here, school in Spring. Graduated there. Played basketball. I was in several different sports, basketball, football, stuff like that. So I was always active. I was always, wanting to do something physical. So, being active in the gym was, ultimately going to be something that was a part of my future. I just didn't know that it was going to be bodybuilding. But, basketball is my number one love. I boxed, so
Yeah.
like I said, I was always active. And, bodybuilding just kind of came out of nowhere for me a little bit.
Which one of those other sports were you the best at? Was it boxing?
Uh, I would probably say, yeah, boxing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
boxing was probably the easiest because it's I found for myself when you're in a sport and it's kind of solo and you're responsible for your own success. You train as hard as you can for it, and it was easier to succeed at that, I believe, as opposed to basketball.
okay. Did you fight professionally at all?
No, no, I didn't go all that far with it. By the time I was of age, that's when basketball came in. So
Okay.
it was one of those deals where I had to choose one. And in school, high school, you don't know what you want to do as a kid. You just want to do what is fun. And so I think what ultimately happened is I just didn't love it as much. I was good at it, but it just wasn't something I could see myself pursuing like lifelong.
Yeah. Was basketball something you had a little more passion for, or no?
Yeah, I did because then I developed camaraderie. I would be with the athletes, the student athletes and stuff like that. So I would make buddies and friends, and so you feel more a part of something when you're playing a team sport. So I kind of got drawn into that. But then going to the next level, I wasn't a taller guy. Definitely wasn't a bigger guy. I was 150 something, 160 pounds in high
Wow.
school.
How
So
tall? I'm going to take a guess because I've stood next to you, and to me, everybody over 6 foot is just up there. So you about 6'1", 6'2"?
no, what's funny, Ron, is I'm actually like 5'10" and a half, 5'11".
Oh God! See, now I'm really
Yeah,
look. Now I really feel short because I was looking up at you. Yeah.
yeah.
So
So
that is short for basketball, I guess, right?
yeah. That's not you have guys that are point guards that are 6'4", 6'5". So
Okay.
it just wasn't in the cards for me, and I had to accept that once I was coming out of high school.
Okay. So you were 5'10" and a half, 5'11", about 150 pounds.
Yeah,
Had you done any weight training for sports up to that point?
nope, I did
Nope.
not. The first time I picked up a weight with the intention to get bigger, I just wanted bigger arms. Funny story behind that.
Hold on.
that
Were your arms? When you were 150 pounds? Were your arms as skinny as I would imagine they were?
Yeah, so I was always very muscular. At 150 pounds, I was always a muscular guy. I just wasn't very big. My brother was a bigger guy, but he wasn't very muscular.
Hmm.
So it's kind of an even split, between the two of us. And I just want a big arm. So I remember one day after basketball practice, we were supposed to go and lift weights, and all the guys did, their legs and all the different stuff they're going to do, and then we went to open gym. I found a curl bar, and I started curling it, and I was like, man, this kind of feels good, and so that was the first time I actually picked up a weight with the intention of growing a muscle, and so it was just my arms,
Hmm. Did you just
and it
train
was
arms for a while? That's all you did?
yeah. So that was at 17 years old, 17, 18 years old.
How old are you now, Patrick? I don't even know.
I'm 35.
Oh, okay. Still a kid in bodybuilding.
Oh yeah, yeah. So what I did was for about 6 years straight. This was 6 years.
Yeah.
I trained arms every day. It
Wow.
didn't, it didn't matter what muscle group I was training. It could be back, it could be chest, whatever. But I trained arms every single day. And I didn't know what bodybuilding was. Like I said, I never aspired to be a bodybuilder. I didn't know anything about it. I knew who Ronnie Coleman was. I knew who all the great guys were.
Yeah.
And I fell into the gym, and there was this guy. I was about 25, 26.
Okay.
And he would see me come in and run this circuit. So I would just do arms and something else, arms and something else, arms and something else. That's all I did, Ron. It was funny. I
Well,
can
it
imagine,
paid off, Patrick. It
yeah,
paid off.
I can imagine this guy seeing this kid just bouncing around like, man, this guy's all he does is train arms.
Yeah.
So he stopped me and he told me, he said, man, you should think about training some other muscle groups because you have pretty good muscularity.
Yeah.
I didn't really pay any mind. I did start dabbling here and there, but like I said, I still didn't know much. I just, I didn't think about being a bodybuilder. And for a couple of years after that, I ran into another gentleman. And this is when I first found out who Phil Heath was.
Uh-huh.
He said, hey, you have a good structure on you, man. He said, you ever thought about bodybuilding? I said, no, man. A guy I met a couple years back, he asked me if I wanted to bodybuild. I said no, because in my head I'm thinking I don't want to get on stage in underwear.
Ah.
That was the only knowledge I had of it at the time. It shows how ignorant I was of the sport.
Well, I mean,
And
it kind of is that, but okay.
yeah, so I didn't think of I didn't think anything past that. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not interested. So this guy hounded me for a while. He would see me, hey man, you thinking about it? You thinking about it? Yeah, maybe man, sometime. So at this time, that's when I actually picked up a book and I read. I think I was taking some classes for personal training. I ran across the Education of a Bodybuilder. So that's
Mm.
Arnold Schwarzenegger's book.
Yep.
Uh, I think one of the first exercises I learned that I was not familiar with was bent over rows.
Mm.
So I became pretty interested in building my back up, right? So at the time I was still dabbling in boxing a little bit, just here and there, wasn't doing much, and I started really getting interested in how to build up other muscle groups. So at that time, the guy had told me, hey, you should train your legs. So I said, okay, he said I had pretty good calves. He could tell that they were long, they weren't big.
Right.
He just knew that there was potential there.
Right.
And so then, long story short, I trained, and finally this guy convinced me to do a contest. I was around 30 years old.
Wow. So
So,
hold on. You started lifting at 17,
uh,
basically, and at
yes,
30 is when you finally decided that maybe I could do a contest. So you had a good 13 years of training, although it wasn't full body training for a while, it sounds like.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
And
gotcha.
so what happened, Ron, was I was top heavy, because I didn't have any knowledge of training legs whatsoever, period.
Right.
I knew what squats were, I knew what leg press were, I knew what the exercises were, but I just wasn't passionate about it. So I would just go in and just get through leg day. A lot of guys will do that. They'll just leg day today, whatever. I wasn't really connecting my mind and muscle. I didn't even know what mind muscle connection was at the time. And so I did that contest, and I ran into some guys backstage, and they said, "Hey, man, you could be really good. You got to bring those legs up though. Those arms are great. My arms stood out. Obviously, I've
Yeah.
been training them for years.
Yeah.
Say, man, those legs up and do this and do that. And so I took notes of everything. Most guys will probably behave at that and they take that as an insult.
Yeah.
But for me, I said, okay, well, this is new. And this is interesting because it's a challenge. This everyone's telling me I should get better here, and so it reminded me of when I did box and when I did play basketball, and those coaches would tell me, "Hey, Patrick, you need to do this better. You could do this better if you did this, and you do this, you'll get this result." So I always took criticism very well. It was never one of those things that that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. This, that, and the other, so on and so forth. So the thing just kind of grew from there, and so I did the 2014 Philly Classic. I was
Okay.
a light heavyweight at that contest.
Hold on. Did you start competing? I'm looking at a contest record, but sometimes these things aren't accurate. Did you start at 2012 at the Texas State?
Oh yes, the Texas State. Yeah, the
And you
Texas
were
State.
light heavy. You were light heavy
Yes,
back then.
light heavy.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Still
And
second place.
so
Not was that your first show?
yes. And
Okay.
so there was not um there wasn't any training done for that contest.
Like no dieting, nothing.
No dieting,
Wow.
no cardio. I just lived. And it was funny because the same way I started out was the same thing that would hinder me going forward. So I did that contest, placed second to a guy, I believe Lorenzo Jones, maybe
Oh
his
yeah.
name.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
so he beat me. I think there was maybe 9 guys in the class at that time. Um, and I was like, oh, I'm going to nationals. I'm going to turn pro. I'm going to do this and all those different things.
Right.
I got my ass smoked.
Mm. Yeah.
Because I went to nationals with the same mentality. No dieting, no cardio, no nothing. And
But let me ask you, what kind of condition look were you in? Because you must have been in some kind of shape. I mean, Texas is no joke. Even the regional, even like the state show, that's no joke. It's a lot
oh
of good
yeah,
bodybuilders out there. So were you, even though you weren't dieting per se, you weren't doing cardio, you were still pretty lean?
I was very lean.
Okay.
It wasn't a strict diet. I was literally eating pizza every day.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, I kid you not, Ron, for
Uh,
facts. I was eating pizza and Reese's every day,
okay.
and I think I had like 2 fish meals every day. So I was eating 4 meals a day. Um, that was about it. I was a waiter at the time, so in between waiting tables and stuff like that, I would run to the back and eat some tilapia and rice, and I would sneak some beans and rice and tortillas off of the line or something like that, and I would just eat whatever was in front of me, but what was happening was I didn't know at the time I was training fasted. So I would
Hmm.
get up in the morning and I would lift weights before I went to work.
Oh,
So
that's
no,
terrible. Oh, I
yeah,
hate to.
no
Oh,
food, nothing,
oh.
So and then I would go in the afternoon and lift weights after as well. So I'm training twice a day and I'm not knowing any better. So I guess that's the reason I was able to get lean is because I was actually, just burning more than I was taking in. I
Right,
just wasn't doing it in the form of cardio.
right.
And so I got pretty lean for that show. It was actually pretty remarkable because now when I look at what I have to do to get in condition, I'm like, dude, you just were lucky back then. Everything lined up and you were able to get in shape. So I did that. Didn't do very well in nationals, obviously. And so once I did the 2014 Phil Heath Classic,
All right. You
that
also
was
did the 2013 USA. It looks like as a light heavyweight.
that's the time when I got like
Okay.
destroyed. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I didn't know any better.
I'm
And
surprised.
so
Was nobody because there's so many damn everyone and their grandmother's a coach now. Was nobody like coming at you trying to say, hey, Patrick, let me coach you. Give me
no,
5 grand. No, nothing.
no,
Okay.
I had no one. Social media was kind of just taking off a little bit. I didn't even know there were coaches in bodybuilding. I just went there and I got backstage. It was just me, and my girlfriend was there with me. My parents went, a couple of buddies that I knew, and none of us had any idea because no
Right.
one had ever been a bodybuilder around us. No one had ever went to a contest. So I went backstage and I was completely intimidated. I
Mm.
saw those guys and I was like, man, this is insane. These guys are big. So everyone was cool though. The guys were at the time. I think I actually competed with Kevin Ofram, right?
Okay.
Kevin Ofram.
Mm.
He's out of Dallas,
Yep.
and he told me at the time I was behind him. He said, "Hey man, you got a great shape. You should stick with this." He said, I guess he knew what call outs were. I didn't know what place I was in. I didn't know I was dead last.
Yeah.
And he said, just stick with it. I've been at this a long time. And so, after that loss, I was like, okay, well, that's that. I guess
Mm.
I'll go back and try again. And it was funny because at that time, I was, I would call myself, oh, I'm going to be Mr. Olympia. Like it was that easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Why not?
No problem. I'll turn pro. I'll be Mr. Olympia, and that'll be that.
Yeah.
And so that was a big, turning point for me there because then I actually got serious about it.
Mm.
I started to do some research and stuff. Still didn't have a coach. Moved on to do the Phil Heath Classic in 2014. Did a cardio, I think maybe a few times a week, but I was hard on my diet.
Mm.
So I learned that aspect of it, and I was actually able to get first and overall there as a light heavyweight.
Okay.
John
Right.
Sherman, was around me at that time, and he gave me some tips here and there. So I went on to do the Nationals in 2015.
Yep.
And at that show, I actually did cardio, a few days a week. Nothing major still. Diet was a little bit tighter. I had expectations of doing better. Still the same result.
Mm.
Still was dead last.
Yeah.
But I didn't let that shake me. I was like, hey, okay, well, you don't have help like some of these other people. There were names at that show. Sergio Oliva, he turned pro at that show. So I saw
Yeah. Yeah.
him. Yeah. And that was pretty cool because that was the first time I actually met Lee formally.
Lee Labrada.
Lee Labrada. Yeah.
Mm.
So I met Hunter because Hunter would go and work out at a gym that I worked at. I was a general manager at LA Fitness.
Yeah.
So I saw Hunter, he would come in, and I used to think to myself, man, it's a big kid. He was a big kid even back then.
Yeah.
And so Hunter went in and we would talk, and he went and grabbed Lee and he said, hey, you should come see this guy. I want you to meet this guy, Patrick. He's going to be something special. You just need to meet him.
Yeah.
So Lee came around the side. I met him, and from then it was pretty crazy because I came back to Texas and Lee was like, well, hey, we're gonna set you up with a sponsorship. We're gonna hook you up with some supplements and this, that, and the other, and we'll teach you some things along the way. And it was crazy because from then, I just pretty much knew success. I won a Texas State after that, first place overall as a heavyweight, and then moved up to super for the USA's in 2017. So that's when I turned pro.
So
And
your first show as a light heavy, what'd you weigh?
as I was 193, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah,
What'd you weigh when you won the USA?
I was 227.
Oh wow, you were barely a super.
Yeah, yeah.
You
I
were
was the lightest guy on stage.
you were like
Easily.
a big bowel movement away from heavyweight class.
Yeah.
But okay, so
Yeah.
now the big what'd you weigh this weekend?
So what's crazy, Ron?
Hmm.
If I had to guess, I would say 236.
Really? Talk about an
Yeah,
illusion. You could have told me 270 and I would
yeah.
have said I would not have blinked.
It was
Wow.
crazy. Me and Chris actually just threw the scale to the side
Hmm.
because in California I was 236, right?
Wow.
And I told myself, even after I won the California Pro, I was like, man, I don't really like how I look right there. I know I can be better than that. I know I won, and that's great, but
Yeah.
I just don't like how I look in that shot. I don't like how my hamstrings look right there. I don't. So immediately I was just back to work. Like it's unacceptable.
Wow.
And so I went hard in the gym, for a good, a few months up until Olympia, and so I would say I was probably the same way because I probably could have been harder in California. So
Yeah.
what I learned, pretty early on now is I just don't even worry about the scale. I'm an open competitor,
Yeah.
so
True.
the weight, it's just gonna be something in the back of my mind that could possibly play tricks on me. Because if I feel like, oh hey man, you're dropping into the 230s, you should freak out. Well,
Right.
no, if I'm in the 230s, maybe I'm hard and I'm separated, which I was, and I'll
I
take
mean,
that any day of the week.
I'd say, and I think a lot of people will agree with me that the best, the three guys on that Olympia stage with the best condition in the Open Mr. Olympia were yourself, Hadi Chupan, and I'd say Lucas Soslado from Czech Republic.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
Um, Brand, a lot of the other guys, I'm not going to single them out, but there was a lot of guys who I've seen much sharper at other
yeah,
shows.
yeah,
But yeah, so your strategy, you and Chris Aceto's strategy, definitely the right way to go because like I said, you could have told me you were 270. I would have believed it because you have that illusion. You have such tiny joints and that waist and everything just flares out.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
and the crazy thing is, I think you could still put on. I think you could still fill out easily another. I want to say like 15 pounds before it's all said and done, and just
easy.
be
And I'm glad that you said that. Because so after the weekend, of course, everyone's, oh man, another 20, 30 pounds, and this. I'm like, guys, you have to keep in mind. I always use this analogy when I get new clients or I talk to people. So just say 30 pounds of lean tissue.
right.
30, let's just say 30 ribeye steaks. How big those things are. And I
Yeah.
tell people, so you want me to attach 30 of those things to my body.
What's funny?
That's
You just echoed. You remember who Mike Mentor was, right?
yes,
You're
uh-huh.
you're kind of young, but he was a big deal back in the day. That was his analogy, and you just repeated. So that's
Really?
great minds think alike, because people think 5 pounds of muscle is nothing to gain 5 pounds of muscle. He says, take 5 pounds of ground beef or steaks, put them on a table in front of you, and imagine that on your body. So if you're
Yeah,
talking about 30 pounds of that, put 30 pounds of steaks on a table. That's a lot of tissue.
it
You know,
is.
people
It's a
have these
lot.
warped. There's too many of those. It's like I think people got their minds warped from all those before and after supplement ads where the guy would be off everything and then he'd go back on and blow up in the after picture. He gained
Yeah,
30 pounds in 4 weeks. I'm like, yeah, sure he did. But yeah, 30, you don't
yeah,
need 30 pounds. 15 pounds with somebody with those nice round muscle bellies and small joints is a huge, huge difference.
yes, sir. And
Continue.
I
I'm
think,
sorry.
no, no, you're good. Like I said, that's a perfect mindset because that's how I view this whole thing, and that's how I was able to put this physique together so far. Because I could have been like everyone else, or and had the mindset when I saw the big guys back at the New York Pro and the California Pro last year when I placed 13th and 8th, and those guys were huge.
Yeah.
So I could have said, you know what, that this is I just have to get big. I
Right.
need to get big like everyone else. Don't worry about your lines. Don't worry. But then I was like, hey, I'm not going to stand out. So I said, okay, let me just take a different approach. What if I think about what my strengths are? Where can I edge some of these guys out? And so immediately I thought, well, my taper. So your waist is small, your shoulders are broad. So why don't you focus on putting tissue where you need it? So my strategy was, okay, let's see if we can get your shoulders rounder. Maybe your lats a little wider, a little thicker. See if we can drop your hamstring some, get your sweep out. So my training for last year to this year, that's what it was focused on. So
Hmm.
when I did my training, I training quads especially was all focused on the sweep. It was because that's the biggest part of the quad. And I knew when standing on stage, I'm going to have to flare those things out.
Yeah.
So with flared quads up against a small waist will give me an illusion that I'm actually bigger.
Right.
So I just thought about it in that manner. So this way I wasn't caught up in the size game like, oh, you just need to add a bunch of weight. I just have to put this tissue on slowly. And then the benefit there is every time I'm on stage, everyone will get to see a different version of Patrick Moore.
Yeah.
Like he's improving every time versus if I go from A to Z so quick, then I'm burnt out.
Yeah.
And that's my max frame. I've blown the lines. Then the talk will be, oh, he was good until he blew his lines. And
Until he got a bubble gut.
yeah. So I know everyone would like to see me bigger, and there's been the Ronnie Coleman analogy and stuff like that. And it's cool because I actually spoke on that before the contest.
Mm.
I have to chase the best version of myself where my strengths are. Because if I try to do what everyone else is doing, then I'll lose my focus. I won't be able to be 100% because I'm going to be an ideal of what the other guys are instead
Right.
of, well, what's the best Patrick Moore? You know,
Yeah. What is that? What is your waist measure? I got to know. In shape.
in shape, I easily 29 inches.
Wow.
Easily 29
Yeah.
inches because when I buy my clothes, I have to buy 32 inches.
Okay.
So that's to fit, and I still have to wear a belt with 32 inches.
Of
And
course.
yeah, it's a struggle when it comes to buying clothes, but yep, I was just born with narrow hips,
Yeah.
and so it's a gift big time, and so I just have to be careful, when I'm training and stuff like that to where I train smart and not crazy because with narrow hips, of course, it's going to become different ligaments and tendon strength as well.
Yeah. So that's another thing because we talked about how you trained legs twice a week over the past couple of years. You've been doubling up on leg workouts ever since USA. Is that right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Two a
Okay.
day, twice a week. So
So
what I would do is I had a primary day where I would train quadriceps.
yep.
It was all heavy quads, and I would do a little bit of hamstrings on the back end. And then the second day was primary hamstrings, and I would do a little quads on the back end of that. So I went to training more so frequency before trying to just throw a bunch of weight on there because for my body, I found that high volume with high weight, works versus low reps and very high weight.
Now, are you built for with hips like that? It's typically not easy to handle a lot of weight on things like squats and leg presses versus someone who's got big clunky hips and big clunky knees and ankles.
Uh,
Has it been a challenge for you to stay, injury free while still going heavy enough to build more legs?
yeah, what's crazy? I've never had an issue with no injuries, injury free, thank God.
Wow.
No tendonitis in my knees, no issues, nothing whatsoever. And I can just kind of attribute that to good squat technique, because I've been as high as 500 pounds on a squat and done it comfortably, you know. And I think I actually posted a video not long ago while I was in prep, and I think it was like 315 on the bar, and I was well below parallel and sitting in the hole. And it's just because of good form that I'm able to concentrate that on my glutes and my quads and keep the tension off my knees. So it just with some good technique, it's pretty easy to lift heavy and stay safe.
There's a ton of guys watching this who are in dire need of quad sweep. So, what were some things that you did to focus specifically on quad sweep?
So on my squats, I definitely had a wider stance. So I would focus on once I went down, on the descension,
Yeah.
where I would feel it all the way up to the insertion of my hips.
Okay.
So that's when I knew I was targeting the sweep. And then when I would do like leg press, a lot of people are like, oh, well, different foot position. Of course that's going to make a difference. But for me, I just would use a mid level, kind of like exactly shoulder width. And
Yeah.
I would just focus on pushing from the center of my quads.
Hmm.
And then if you can do some good mind muscle connection, I mean, you can almost make every exercise hit your sweep,
Hmm.
because that's what gives you the biggest size. And I would do quite a bit of single leg press. There was a lot of weighted lunges, and so it was just really putting my mind to that part of the muscle. But I just went just old school. It was heavy squats, heavy leg press, and I would just pair them back to back, and it was just some intense workout. The rest periods weren't very long, so this way there was constant blood flow in the muscle, and it just started responding, big time.
So, you never had to do, because I always tell people, keep your feet close together and go low on the platform, which is it's rough on the knees for most people. But
Yeah.
did you do any of that, or you found you were able to target the sweep without having to do anything crazy with the foot position like that?
Yeah, I didn't do any
Hmm.
close low movements,
Okay.
and yeah, it was crazy. I was able to use the angled leg press, and I was kind of dead center and about even at shoulders, and I would just let it come down, and I follow through, and it would just target my sweep.
It
So it
worked.
was it
It
was pretty
worked.
beneficial.
Because
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw up some pictures from a USA win because your
Okay.
legs they've like doubled. They've probably doubled in size since then. If I had to,
Easily,
yeah, I
easily.
mean, like I told you, I thought I was really worried that this guy, most people turning pro these days, that's the end of it. You never really, they might try a couple pro shows and get destroyed, and that's the end of them,
Yeah.
But to your credit, and even after your first year as a pro, eighth and 13th place, eighth's not bad, but I mean,
Yeah.
typically that's not somebody that's going to be doing much in the sport if they're taking eighth at the California and 13th in New York Pro.
Yeah.
But here you are, you got a pro win and top 10 at the Olympia this year. So man, like I said, I love being wrong. I love it when someone I don't have much expectations of, they really show up and I'm like, wow, this guy made some serious improvements.
Yes, sir.
It inspires people because it's cool when someone jumps on the scene and they're awesome from day one. That's cool, but it's not very
Yeah.
inspire. It's not inspiring because
Yeah.
it just means they were always great.
Yeah.
But somebody like yourself, who you had some great body parts and some that needed a lot of work, and you've done so much in the past couple of years to bring them up. Um,
Yeah.
so we talked in the meet and greet real briefly that you have probably the one mentor in the sport that a lot of people they're very jealous when they hear about this, is Phil Heath. How did you get to know Phil Heath?
So I did his show in 2014.
Yeah.
He didn't know who I was. I met him backstage. I saw him backstage. We took a picture. I'll have to send that in to you guys because it's kind of where I the whole thing really started for me when I said, you know what, I'm gonna take this thing serious because if that's the end result, then that's what I want.
Mm.
And so I met him. Then we chatted for a quick second. I actually had a chance to do an interview with him and Jay Cutler after the show
Huh.
in 2014, and it was pretty cool because I mean, between the two of them at the time, I think it was 7, 8 titles. So I'm like, this is crazy. Like these guys are have been there and they've done it, and so they're talking to me.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool and it was very inspiring at the time. And so after that, I followed his career. I would see all the things that he was doing, and for me, I always pay attention. I pay attention, to the old guys from the '80s, '90s, any current guys. I would just, once I got interested in this thing of bodybuilding, I pretty much kind of just went down YouTube and the internet, like looking at these guys, and I would pick this and pick that, and I like this and I like that, and how can I get this? How can I get that? And it was just like a chess game, and I was just trying to put all this different stuff together. And so we would cross paths. You know, I would see him when he would come to Houston because he had a show here. And every time I see him, we would talk. He never rushed me. You know, we still weren't formally introduced,
Mm.
but I would get in line, wait to meet him. He would talk to me. We found we had an interest in basketball and stuff like that. So we talked, and I believe in 2017, you know, once I was getting ready to go for the pro card, we were on social media, and I think I may have mentioned him or something, and he actually, you know, commented back, and so he commented back, and he was like, you know, when you get on that stage, just make sure that until stage time, every workout you do now, that means, you know, you're going in the center, you're fighting for that center spot, you're fighting for first place. So don't leave that gym until you feel like you've done everything to earn that center spot. You
Mm.
know, so he told me that. He sent me a message. We would go back and forth here and there. Of course, he's still winning titles at the time. And, you know, he would just tell me, like, yeah, you know, he would give me some advice, and, you know, this is how it goes, and this is, you know, what's the sport about, and it can be so much fun. And, you know, he was really encouraging.
Yeah.
He was basically like, hey, man, I'm going to tell you how this thing goes. If this is really what you want to do, here you go. It was kind
Mm.
of like a blueprint a little bit, you know?
Wow.
And so after I turned pro, you know, he was like, congratulations. And, you know, he said, you're in the big leagues now. And, you know, I told him what my plans were about the show. And he's like, okay. You know, he never said you shouldn't do this, you should do that, you should do this. He was just always like, okay. You know, and you know how he is. He's just laid back,
Oh
and
yeah.
he was supportive of whatever I decided to do.
Wow.
Uh, so I told him I was going to do the New York Pro, and he was like, okay, well, I'm going to tell you, you're gonna have to fight these guys because you're a smaller guy, you're a smaller name. No one really knows who you are, so you're gonna have to really fight these guys.
Yeah.
And I was up for the challenge. I said, okay, that's cool because I want to know how can I measure up against these top guys. And at that time, you know, all the big names were in the New York Pro that year. It was Juan Morel, John De La Rosa, Nathan Diasha, Lionel Baggy,
Yeah.
Josh. It was a monstrous lineup. I
It
can't
was a
tell
good
you.
line. I was there. That was a
It
good
was a
show.
good
Yeah.
lineup, and
Yeah.
they were big boys. And it was my pro debut, so I went out, saw those guys, said, okay, so this is what it's about.
Mm.
When it competed, I got like the third call out. It was like, okay, no big deal. I was good at that show. Me and Chris Aceto put a good package together. I was in great condition. Obviously, I was still a smaller bodybuilder, and it didn't shake me. And I said, okay, well, New York's done. New York's done. My pro debut is done. So what do we have next? So we had California. So Phil, you know, he was like, okay, New York was good. And he was like, so, you know, in California, remember, same thing. So he hit me up while I was down there in California, and he was checking on me. He said, how you feeling? You know, this is another chance for you to improve. And I talked to him the morning of the show. He actually sent me this video that was pretty motivating. And,
Mm.
you know, it's basically like, it's time to go show them who you are.
Wow.
And so I had a little bit extra fire at that show. And,
Yeah.
and then the nerves were a little bit more down because my pro debut had been done just, you know, prior to the week. So I said, okay, I'm going to really enjoy this one. So my body responded a little bit better, a little bit bigger and more full in California. So I was able to jump up and skip over a few of those guys that had beat me in New York.
Yeah.
So that was cool. You know, I was able to pass up a few there. After that was over and the smoke was clear, I said, okay, I placed eighth, and I was leaving out of there after Nathan won the show and all those other guys, top guys. California was a good show last year.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to get them next year. I'm going to come back. I'm going to get all of them. And
Mm.
so that was my plan. I went back, came back home, started training hard because I knew what my weaknesses were, you know. And I started training hard, and I said, okay, you know what? The next time they see Patrick Moore, they're going to say, man, this guy, he changed a lot, you
Mm.
know. And that was my motivation the whole year. And so once I went back, and people would see pictures a few days before the show, and they saw the better conditioning, they
I
said,
remember seeing those pictures and thinking, but you know, this is a guy, Patrick, after last year, I was like, he's probably
yeah.
going to be one of those guys. But once I saw those pictures, I'm thinking, yeah, he might win this thing. And he's probably looking at the lineup, I'm saying, I don't know if any of these other guys can beat him the way he's looking in these pictures.
Yeah,
Sure enough, they couldn't.
yes, sir. And
Wow.
it was I went out and when they called me, to get center, I said, okay, I'm gonna own this spot. And
Hmm.
so Phil was, of course, very encouraging. I talked to him while I was there. He FaceTimed me a few times. We would go through some poses and stuff like that. And he would give me some tips on how to hit this shot, that shot. That way it would, best benefit, my structure.
Yeah.
So I thought about those things on stage, and I was able actually to really enjoy that show. I had a lot of fun. It was my first pro win, so of course I was completely elated. After that was over with, and I had no intentions at the time of doing the Olympia because I just wanted to grow some more. I knew that the Olympia was a bigger stage,
Yeah.
obvious the biggest,
Hmm.
and so I met Jake after the show, Jay Cutler. So
Well,
Jay was back there, and he said, "Well, why wouldn't you do the Olympia?" And I said, "Well, I feel like I may need some more time." And he said, "Patrick, I got 15th out of 16th in my first Olympia."
yeah.
So he said, and then I went on to do some great things. So he said, "You should do the show," you know. And so I said, "Okay, that was pretty much it for me." And Chris sent me a text, and Chris said it was a picture, and it was a hotel. He said, "This is where we stay. Get there a week out."
Oh
So
man.
Chris didn't even wait for a confirmation. He
Yeah.
just, this is where we stay. Get there a week out. And you know what I love about Chris is, man, Ron, I don't know that there is a better coach or someone to work with.
Yeah.
This guy will check on you consistently. He will call you in the middle of the night to make sure you're okay. Just all kind of stuff. And so he told me, he said, "Look, you're going to Olympia. You're going to get a crazy call out. You're going to look crazy good, and that's it." And then we got off the phone, and he
Wow.
said, "Call me later in the week when you get back home. Send me pictures, and we'll get a game plan."
Hmm.
So I came back home, sent some pictures, and I said, "Okay, so this is Olympia. Let's step this up." And of course, Phil was like, "Yeah, man, it's you're where it's at now. You're in deep waters." So I went and obviously took the mindset like, okay, you're gonna have to show them that you're gonna be a serious contender. If not in this contest, then in future contests.
Yeah.
And so the mentality was there, the motivation to have a great showing because at the time, my mind frame was okay. Now you're going to be in front of the world of bodybuilding and fitness, and you're going to be on that stage alone for a minute and a half to 2 minutes, and
Yeah.
then you're going to be on that stage compared with the biggest, best guys of 2019. You
Yeah.
know, so the training was motivated every day by the fact that I don't want to embarrass myself. I had already committed, so I'm in. And what are you going to do? You're going to step up to the plate. You're going to fold. So it was one of those deals where leading up to the show, Phil was like, "Hey man, I saw some pics. You're looking good. Enjoy it.
Hmm.
Enjoy it. This is your first one. You don't get another first time." And so he's just always been there. He's a guy that's 100% supportive. I can pick up the phone now and call him. And he's
Hmm.
like, "You need anything, just call me, text me."
Wow.
And so a lot of people, they're like, "Wow, that's so cool." And it really is because not many people can say that they can contact the guy. It's like playing basketball with Michael Jordan. If you're a basketball player,
Right.
it's like if that's the greatest guy, you get to go play one on one with him. So the only change I could, like I said, this debut was amazing. If I could make one change, then
Hmm.
he told me last year after the show, um, he said, my hope for you would be to be on that stage with me next year.
Hmm.
So this was before the Olympia in 2018,
Yeah.
and I said, "Man, that would be awesome." Okay, I'm gonna work for that. So
Hmm.
in my head, I was working for that because I mean, that would have been amazing because that
Right.
would have been something I've always had. Hey, well, I got to stand on the stage with the guy that was the reason I started the sport.
Wow.
So
Were you a little bummed that he didn't do it this year?
yeah, a little bit, and
I think we all were. We all
yeah,
were. Yeah.
and I told him, I said, "Man, I wish you could be there," and he told me, he said, I wish I could too, man," and he was like, "It's and his wife Cherie, she had some medical stuff she had to get taken care of, so I get that 100%. Like life is important, so thankfully she's on the mend now, she's feeling better, getting better, but
Yeah.
so I understand that completely, and he said, "But damn it, I won't miss another one." So, and I said, "You got to promise me." He said, "Okay, I promise." He was like, "Whether I'm there or I'm on that stage, I won't miss another one." So I told him, you need to get your ass on that stage.
So you didn't
So
get to
I'm
stand next to Phil, but I
yeah.
believe you were in the second call out. And if I'm not mistaken, you correct me, please. I think like Dexter and Rolly were in that call out with you.
No,
Were they not?
I actually didn't get a chance to stand next to those guys.
Ah,
And I was pretty disappointed, pretty bummed out about that,
mm,
because, like I said, you know, I'm the guy that's like, I just want to see it. Let me just see, because then if I have the opportunity to go back and I can look at pictures or video, well, see, this is where you need to get better. You see where Dexter's better here. You see where Raleigh's bigger here. These guys are dense. They're, you know, I can really, you know, make my own comparison and say, not to say, oh, I'm better than them. Oh, I outcondition them. Oh, you know, my waist is smaller. None of that. I just want to see how I line up with the best guys in the world. And you know, I didn't get that opportunity. I did get to line up with Cedric, so that was pretty cool. You know, and he had the nicest things to say. He was like, actually, all those guys did, Ron. Not one single guy backstage, you know, made me feel out of place. They
mm,
were, hey man, you're here, welcome. You look great, you look amazing, and they were just, all those guys were class acts, you know, and
mm.
it was an amazing experience. It really was.
I have to ask one thing. Your posing was very, very polished and professional in the mandatories and in your routine. And you work with Lee Labrada. You're one of his athletes for Labrada Nutrition.
Yes,
Did Lee help you at all with your posing?
Lee is as big as a mentor as Phil. Lee's like a father. He
Mm.
really is, man. He will. He's the guy that won't let you off the phone. He's like, "Do you have everything you need? Let me know if there's anything you need." You
Wow.
know, he'll call, he'll text, "Hey Pat, is everything all right? Just checking on you, man. Hey champ, how you feeling?" And he choreographed the routine, because I told him, you know, after the California, I said, "Man, I really want to do something special for my first time out. You know, even though this is my debut, I don't want to really look like amateurish on the biggest stage in the world."
Yeah.
So Lee said, "Okay, give me a couple days." Ron, he put it together like that, and
Ah,
it was crazy when he sent me the video and I saw him do it. Of course, my thoughts were, I was like, "Okay,
yeah.
so you want me to do that?"
I mean,
And
he's one of the best posers of all time, as far as I'm concerned.
completely. I mean, it
Yeah.
was, he just spit it out like he just got off the stage yesterday. I
Wow.
mean, it was completely polished and so sharp. It was right on the money. And it was crazy because the routine for me that I did was good, but I wasn't as happy with it as I wanted to be, because we had done it. He had ran me through it over and over and over. You know, that guy, he took time away from his family, you know, invited me over to the house and we would work on it in his garage, you
Wow.
know, and he would just run me through it again. He's, "Pat, you ready? Pat, you ready? Let's do it again. Let's do it again." And so I was pretty comfortable with the routine. As far as the mandatories, Chris had a big part to do with that. So Chris would not let me rest the week of the Olympia.
I'm
We
sure.
posed at least 4 rounds minimum every 3 hours,
Wow.
every day. I mean, I was so tired. It was not even funny, man. And so when I got out there and the lights were bright and it was all adrenaline at that point, it just felt so natural. You know,
Yeah.
I just didn't feel nervous. I'm like, oh, I just did this 20 times yesterday with Chris,
Wow.
so now I just have to do it in front of, you know, thousands of people.
You know,
So
I've seen so many guys that are rookies. It's their first time on the Olympia stage, and they're just like, there's like deer in the headlights. They're overwhelmed by that crowd and the lights. It's the biggest stage we have in the world. But to your credit, man, you looked right at home. You looked like no big deal. Here I am.
yeah.
You didn't let it get to you like that.
No, that was when I walked out and I saw the length of the stage. I mean, it was pretty overwhelming. Then I saw the crowd and I was like, "Oh wow!" in my head. But then I thought, "Hey, everyone's watching, and you're gonna go back and look at this, so you better get it right." And
Yeah.
so immediately once I hit the square, then it was just like a switch. I was like, "Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
This is front double bicep, front lat spread, side chest, and don't forget, squeeze the hamstring, squeeze the glutes. If you have a strength, kind of run your hand across it, like, you know, just like I had seen the guys do
Yeah.
in YouTube over and over and over. And I just remember telling myself, this way, when you go back and you look at it, you can say, "Man, you look really good right there. You
Yeah.
actually did a good job." You know, so
Yeah.
I wanted to get that posing right. I had a chance to go see Steve, Big Steve, up in at Bev's.
Yeah.
So he ran me through some poses. This was a few weeks out. So I knew he was watching, and he critiqued me on my posing. So I wanted to make sure I got it right as well, for the judges down at the table.
Did you get any feedback from judges or anybody after the show?
I haven't. I did talk to Big Steve, and he said, get. Of course, I need more size,
Yeah.
and he's had some. He said, get the legs bigger, and of course, that's still the focus. That'll be the focus for a very long time. If it's possible, I would like to be bottom heavy, and it's motivating that I made the changes so quick, because what it does tell me is that I'm not done growing. I still have more growing to do. I can fill this frame out, and so I'm just up for the challenge. It's I already knew that this is just the beginning of Patrick Moore. I'm only getting started.
Yeah,
And people,
absolutely.
I just wanted them to know, like, hey, I'm here now, and trust me, just like you see me get better every contest, I'm gonna get better, and when I do, it's gonna be pretty special to watch. And like I said, it was pretty humbling for everyone to receive the physique that I put together so well. I didn't think I would be such a big talk.
Yeah.
So it's like I said, it's completely humbling. That people received it that way, and I'm just happy I was able to present a physique that people were able to appreciate.
You were the surprise of the show because Hadi, we all knew how good Hadi was. We just saw him in Vancouver, and we've been talking about Hadi for a couple of years, but nobody really saw you coming.
No,
You won the Cali. The Cal didn't get a lot of coverage.
no,
So a lot of people you weren't really in the conversation. I didn't even talk about you in the previews I did.
yes, sir.
So no offense, because
No, no,
I didn't have you on my radar, but I'll tell you, once you came out, I was like, geez, this guy's gonna be good. He's good now.
yeah,
You were way better than I expected you to be, and you're gonna be, the attitude you have. It tells me you're gonna get better and better and better because you're determined and you're not
yeah,
you listen to criticism. It's the guys that don't listen and they think the judges suck and people are haters. They're the ones that never improve. It's guys
yeah,
like you who take all the constructive criticism and go to work. Those are the guys that go up to the top. So
yeah. I try to tell people, Ron, I wasn't in anybody's prediction. I wasn't on any pages. I had buddies contact me. I would see the comments. Oh, he's not this. Oh, his condition isn't this. His legs aren't this. Oh, he won't have this. And I see that stuff, and I'm like, okay,
mm,
all right, no big deal. And so, for me, I tell people all the time, I'm a guy that was last place.
right.
So where someone thinks that a placing, a lot of people, oh, you should be higher. You should have been this. You should. And I'm like, guys, don't worry. It's all good. Because
Yeah.
guess what? The judges saw what they saw, and they did a great job, and they placed us where we should be. And all this going to make me do is come back even better. And I'm just going to work so hard that you won't be able to overlook me. I mean, you're gonna have to put me in the mix. And so that's what I try to tell people, and everyone that's inspired. I'm like, it's just beginning. Like, trust me, this is I don't have to be in the prediction. I don't have to be in a conversation because Patrick will earn his way into the conversation. You know,
Yeah.
so I'm just excited about the future because, like I said, this is just a glimpse of what's to come. Because I enjoy the process. A lot of guys say you gotta love the process, enjoy it, but I'm the one that really does enjoy it. I like the hard work.
Mm,
I like the challenge.
wow.
I like to not be a part of the conversation where people are, well, can he get any better? Well, let me just show you. I don't have to really talk about it. I'll just show you.
Yeah. Well, see, the thing is, a lot of those guys that beat you this year at the Olympia, realistically, they're not going to get any better. They're maxed out. They've been pros for many years.
Yeah.
They look awesome, but they're not going to get any better at this point. Whereas I can't even imagine what you're going to look like in 2 or 3 years. I can't. It's going to be insane. I
Yes,
mean,
sir.
people are talking about you as a Mr. Olympia. You know what? Why not? Why not? If
Yes,
you
sir.
keep improving at the rate you are, keep working on the things you need to work on. Keep that little waist. Why not? Why not?
Yeah.
You know what I
That's
wanted to ask you? What's the biggest your arms measure? Because they're like 23 inches in shape.
that the biggest I've had them 23 and a half.
No,
23 and a
there you go, people.
half.
Wow. I mean,
And
that's
they're
bodybuilding right
just
there.
it's just a gift to have bigger arms. And it's like I said, it's I stopped training them for a while, but then I kind of picked up training on them a little bit because they do make a lot of the shots more impressive. A lot
Absolutely.
of people know I love to hit the vacuum.
Yep.
So when I can pull that vacuum in and the arms are flaring out with the lats, then it's like wow, and it's crazy, man. People before yeah, I would, you get the internet trolls and they're like, oh, Synthol, there's this in his arms. And I'm like, guys, go look at some of my pictures from way back. Like, my arms were always just bigger because that's the only group I trained for 6 years.
And if you're gonna put synthol anywhere, you would have done it in your legs, not your arms.
Yes, and thank you. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, gosh, give me a break. Let me just have one great thing, one great quality. So it's yeah, I'm excited, man. I definitely am excited.
You should be. Well, I'm gonna wrap it up. You've been very generous with your time. I want everyone to check out your Instagram. It's Patrick T Moore.
Yes,
Patrick
sir.
T Moore.
Yes,
Check
sir.
him out. And wow, you're the guy we're gonna be looking at. Everyone's gonna keep an eye on you because yeah, this is you help make that show exciting. It's always
Yes,
cool
sir.
when somebody breaks out that we weren't even thinking about, and now this is someone we're going to be watching as a future top 5, top 3 guy very, very soon.
Yes, sir.
Sooner rather than later.
I'm
Uh,
I, I'm coming. I'm coming for that title. And
yeah.
I said this when I started the sport. I told Phil, and I said, I want what you have. I want that. And
Mm.
he said, well, go get it. And so I'm here, and I'm gonna keep climbing. Like I said, it's I don't take anything off the table. If I'm gonna do it, I'm doing 100%. And the top of the mountain is that Sandow Trophy.
Yeah,
So
well,
I'm going
you're
for it.
well on your way, Patrick. Well on your way.
Yes, sir.
This has been quite a start, quite an auspicious debut at the Olympia.
Yes, sir.
Uh, I'm going to let you go. I want everyone to check out again that Instagram, Patrick T Moore. You can follow along as he improves. The next time you see him, I'm sure is going to be another level, another evolution of what we just saw
Indeed.
at the Olympia, and
Yes, sir.
that's exciting. We all like to see people get better and better because
Yes, sir.
that's what bodybuilding is. It's about improvement. So
Exactly. Yes, sir.
you've got such a work ethic and such a great attitude. It's infectious. So I'm glad you're in the sport, Patrick. You make the sport better.
I'm glad to be here. Absolutely.
Well, I'm gonna say goodbye for the Ronline Report. This has been Patrick Moore. Keep an eye on this guy. Thanks for
Yes,
watching.
sir. Thank you.